Good afternoon. My name is Alex Bernstein, and today I'll be presenting the results of my time series analysis for the Fantasy Football 2022 season. Fantasy football is a game played by over 50 million users on an annual basis across a multitude of platforms. Users select real-world NFL players to try to fill out a roster that will perform best on a week-by-week basis. Actual stats are then translated into fantasy points, so the highest performing players on Sundays are going to be the highest performing players on your fantasy team. To win, your fantasy team must outscore your opponents on a week-by-week basis. Now, this data is all collected and archived onto a website called Fantasy Pros, where you can see how every single player has performed going all the way back to the 2012 season on a week-by-week basis. I took those statistics for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and mapped that from the 2018 season through the most recent 2021 season. After downloading all of those data sets, I combined it into one master file, which I then separated each into their own univariate time series, or a Pat Mahomes table, a Kyler Murray table, a Lamar Jackson table, for example. From there, I imputed the data utilizing the na.Kalman function, which is an auto ARIMA impute function, which plugs in its best guess using a smoothing model as to what that value would be if it wasn't NA or 0. From there, I split the data into training and testing sets, so it tested against the 2021 season. The first three models I used were an ARIMA, which is an auto-regressive integrated moving average model, the Profit model, which is Facebook's time series analysis tool, and a GLMNET, which is a neural network. From there, I created an ensemble model, which is the mean of those three models. And lastly, I created a weighted ensemble model utilizing weights from the most accurate models utilizing the MACE accuracy metric. From there, I compared all 5 models and chose the best one, once again using the MACE accuracy method. And then I predicted the 2022 season utilizing the best model for each specific univariate time series or player. Lastly, I took all of the forecasted points scored and measured that against the current average drafted position within the ESPN app to identify which players are being drafted ahead of where they're projected to score and behind of where they're projected to score. So you can identify busts and steals for the 2022 season. So going into the code here, all of this was done within R. First, I want to show you some of the accuracy metrics that we received for some of our players. So it just output here, and I utilized the MACE metric. An acceptable MACE metric would be anything less than 1. If it's 0.5, it means it's twice as good as just a regular regression metric. If it's 1, you might as well just guess the last value and you're going to be just as accurate. So you can see for Aaron Rodgers, the Profit model, we got all the way down to 0.579, which is incredibly accurate for a model. Mean average error on this, it was only off by about 4 points, which in fantasy, it's really negligible when you're guessing week over week across the full season. For Josh Allen here, you can see his MACE was even better. They were all almost 0.5, which again is double as good as a regular regression model. And you can see the mean average error was just around 6. So again, very good for a season-long model. It might be easier to see it visually. So as I go down here, I also plotted each of these graphs. So what you can see here is for Aaron Rodgers, the blue line is what he actually did. These colorful lines down here are what my models projected he did. So if we clean up some of the noise and look at Profit, which if we remember from the MACE calculation was his most accurate model, you can see it was pretty much spot on to exactly what he did in the 2021 season. You can see here towards the back end of the season, he peaked. During the middle of the season, he was probably bored playing the Lions and Bears over and over again. He started to decline. And if you look at the confidence intervals, he was within it all season, except for this one game here where, Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. So you can see visually what my model is predicting is just right about spot on to what Aaron Rodgers was doing over the course of the season. Then, utilizing this profit model, or the best model of his, we can go down here and we can see just what our model believes he is going to do for the 2022 season. And the profit model in particular thinks he's going to score around 28 points a game. Over here, 25, 23 in the start of the season. The ARIMA believes he's going to score about 20 points a game, which for a player of Aaron Rodgers' status, makes sense. It passes the smell test. For Pat Mahomes, you can see, similarly, the ARIMA thinks he's going to score 23 points a game. For Josh Allen, the ARIMA thinks he's going to score just about 25 points a game. So this all sounds just about right for these star players. And based off of the accuracy of their MACE metric, you can believe that these are very high-quality models that produce forecasts very similar to what we're going to see in the 2022 season. So with all that said, taking the top model for each player and projecting what they're going to do for the 2022 season, we come up with the, drum roll please, top 10 players of the 2022 season. Starting with Derrick Henry, getting 476 points. Not a surprise. Whenever he's on the field, he's the best player in the entire league. Josh Allen, 473 points. Cooper Kupp being the first wide receiver, again, back-to-back years, 438. Deebo Samuel, 425. Kyler Murray, 424. Tom Brady, 413. Justin Herbert, 404. Aaron Rodgers, 401. Jonathan Taylor coming in at 397. And rounding out the top 10, you have Austin Eckler projected to score 389 points. For quarterbacks, it has your top 5 is Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers. For running backs, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, and Damian Harris. Now, you might look at Damian Harris here and say, what's going on? I don't draft him anywhere near the top 10. Well, let's go look at what the model, why it's predicting what it's predicting. So if I pull up Damian Harris, you can see he has a clear positive linear regression his entire career. He's been getting better. And in a Bill Belichick offense, he's going to have plenty of opportunities to improve and get plenty of red zone touches. So as you can see, he's gotten better throughout his whole career. Every single model is kind of dead on the same line, thinking he's going to score about 18 points a game, which where he's getting drafted around the 80s, that is league-winning upside. Back over here, we go to tight ends. It only has 2 tight ends projected to score over 300 points, Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. Rounding out the top 5 are George Kittle at 263, Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys at 262, and Darren Waller at 239. In your top 5 wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, not surprising. Deebo Samuel, again, not surprising. Devontae Adams coming in at 3rd. New digs with his college quarterback out in Vegas. We'll see how he does. Chris Godwin at 330. And number 5, you got Justin Jefferson with 329 projected points. So what this all comes down to is probably the most important graph I've shown you in this entire presentation, which I call the steals and the busts metric. So what this does is I have fantasy points on the left, which is what the top model is projecting you to score over the 2022 season, versus the ESPN consensus average draft position, which is over all of their mock drafts and live drafts, what's the average position this player is getting drafted at. I then ran a regression line between the two, and you can see the players above it are outperforming where they're being drafted, or their steals, league winners, however you want to call it, whereas the players below this line are busts, and they might lose your draft. Or they're players that they're not going to live up to where you're drafted, and you might use this data to go seek to draft somebody else elsewhere. So let's take a look at some of the steals it has. Josh Allen, even though he's the number 1 quarterback going, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy scorer overall. It's a game about points. No matter where you're drafting him, it's going to be a good pick because he's the top scoring player overall. He's by far the most far away from the regression line, meaning he's going to, even at pick number 20, he's the steal of the draft. Most other quarterbacks right around going near ADP. Justin Herbert's almost right on the line of ADP. Kyler Murray, ADP. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, all right around the line. A couple busts that you see. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is actually projected to score less than Kyler Murray, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers, but he's going 2 rounds ahead of them. So he's a player that you might want to avoid in these drafts. Another player, Jalen Hurts, he was fantastic last year, but he's going top 6 rounds. And according to what he's projected to score, he might not live up to where you're getting him when you could get players like Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, or Tom Brady right after him. Some late round steals that you could find. Kirk Cousins, always a great streaming option. And Tua Tagovailoa coming in with a projected 308 fantasy points. New coach there, and Mike McDaniel, new weapons with Tyreek Hill. He could be in store for a breakout year. For the running back position, Derrick Henry, King Henry, of course, is going to be the steal of the draft wherever you take him. Whenever he plays, he is clearly the best player in fantasy football, and he's going at number 5 this year. So if you can get him anywhere, even the number 1 pick, it's going to be a good pick. Jonathan Taylor, even though he's going number 1, it's still a steal just because of how many points he scored. He was the best running back in football last year. Prayers up to King Henry. He comes back healthy. But I expect him to do it once again this year. The whole offense is built around him, and he's a steal even going number 1. Austin Eckler, too. Whole offense runs through him. He's a PPR monster. Similar to LaDainian Tomlinson back in the day with the Chargers, just how many catches he catches, I guess, over the course of a game. He could win you your whole league. A couple guys that the model believes are busts. Christian McCaffrey going number 2. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in the last 3 seasons. And in that offense, he might not get as many touchdown opportunities as some of the other guys going in the top 10. Over here, you have Ezekiel Elliott. He had the worst year of his career last year, lowest yards per carry. People say he was dealing with an injury. We'll see if he comes back from it. But he seems to be splitting reps with Tony Pollard. And if he's going in the top 40 picks in ESPN, I do not believe that he's going to live up to that hype. Next one, Josh Jacobs. He's going number 44 in fantasy, and he's only projected 240 points. He's right around the regression line, but another player that this deems to be a bust. A couple late-round steals that it could see you. Raheem Mostert on the Dolphins. He's back with Mike McDaniel, who he had his best season with ever. Opportunity there for him to exceed his draft position. And J.D. McKissick, a great PPR option. All of this data is based off of points per reception. So a player like him, especially if somebody like Antonio Gibson goes down, could be a league winner for you. Tight ends, pretty much everybody's going right around ADP. Travis Kelce, he's actually the first tight end taken, even though Mark Andrews is the projected top. So he is the biggest steal of the draft, you could say, for tight ends. He was the first tight end last year. So given the weapons Lamar Jackson has in Baltimore, it would make sense if he repeats as the top tight end against this year. George Kittle drafted where he should be. Dalton Schultz where he should be. Darren Waller. The one that the models do not like where he's drafted is Kyle Pitts. He disappointed last year too, drafted right around this range. And if you're going top 37, you're missing out on some really good running backs. You're missing out on some potential quarterbacks. And Kyle Pitts, it's a lot of projection just based on the raw ability. But in an offense led by Marcus Mariota, I tend to agree with the model that he may not live up to that number 37 pick. You could find better players elsewhere, like Pat Freiermuth going 109, or my personal favorite, Dawson Knox going 112. Josh Allen's tight end, plenty of touchdown upside. I think he's one of the bigger steals that you could get in this draft, and the models tend to believe that as well. And lastly, wide receivers. You got your 2 top scoring receivers up here, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel. Again, they're going top 10. They're still steals. No matter where they go in the draft, they're going to be a great player for you, and they're going to exceed where they're being drafted. Devontae Adams, again, with his college quarterback out in Vegas. We'll see how he does going from a Hall of Fame quarterback to a very good quarterback, but given the talent, we should still see him finish top 3 just as projected. Justin Jefferson, great pick. Tyreek Hill, great pick. T. Higgins, all considered players that are outperforming where they're drafted. A couple busts. It sees CeeDee Lamb isn't living up to his number 14 pick. I've seen him in drafts go top 5, which is definitely a reach for him. But as the lone receiver out in Dallas right now, we'll see if his targets begin to increase. DJ Moore, he's another guy. He's going top 3 rounds. He's only projected 225 points. A player like him, you can find pretty much the same player 5 rounds later. It's not worth the high retail price when the quarterback thrown to you is He failed out of Cleveland. I mean, you don't really have to say anything more than that. A couple more steals that it finds later. Chris Godwin, he's the top PPR receiver in Tom Brady's offense. Tom Brady's coming off the best season of his career. So we should see, again, high volume from Chris Godwin this year. And Hunter Renfrow coming off his first All-Pro season, a 1,000-yard receiver, got Devontae Adams, who should open up the field for him. He should have a breakout year this year. A couple busts that have foresees in this draft. Marquise Brown, he's going number 57 overall. He's always hurt. Cortland Sutton, he's been injured. Jerry Jeudy, again, a lot of injury players. So you can identify a couple players. Brandon Cooks, for example, he's been healthy. He's going 52 overall. Most likely not worth it, given he's only projected 210 points. You could find similar players out here, such as Robbie Anderson, or Jarvis Landry. Even now that he's with the Saints, Jameis Winston's going to be throwing the ball a million times. So that's that. You can see all of this data will be posted onto my Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pages. I appreciate the time, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about which models I used, some of my code that I utilized to develop these series. And I'll be coming out at the end of the season, letting you guys know just exactly how well these models fared. Thank you so much, and have a great day.